Good morning and happy Wednesday morning to you. Okay, guys, we have a lot of royal news, and then we have number 7 from Meghan's show. And I'm going to say something that's going to shock you. While the show was still sucking, I was really liking the guest she had on. She's the only guest that you could tell wasn't acting for the cameras. You know what I'm saying? She seemed like a really nice woman, but the show still sucked. But okay, let's jump in and cover, shall we? Let's go. We're starting off with King Charles. He is the very first ever British monarch to record a podcast. It is a celebration across the Commonwealth. Now, we know he likes 1970s music, but apparently he likes a lot of different music genres. This is an Apple Music download that was recorded at Buckingham Palace in his personal office. The King's Music Room is what it's called. It will be available by the time you hear this. It will be available tomorrow, Commonwealth Day. And it gives an insight into his tastes. You have artists from 1930s all the way up to disco and reggae. He did a trailer, it's really cool, that shows the band outside Buckingham Palace playing Bob Marley and different pictures from inside the palace. It's beautiful. Now they're saying it's going to be intriguing to know which song he features on his playlist. Oh my God. Now, Apple, who at the time I'm recording this has not revealed the full playlist, said the selection is sure to surprise and delight music fans everywhere, and it reveals a more personal side to the king. I love what he said in his introduction. He said, "Throughout my life, music has meant a great deal to me. It has that remarkable ability to bring happy memories flooding back from the deepest recesses of our memory to comfort us in times of sadness and take us to distant places." I love that. Commonwealth Day, by the way, will be recognized with the annual service at Westminster Abbey, and the senior royals will be there, and I will be covering that for you. All right, let's move on. Next up, I couldn't remember if I showed you this already, and I found it, so I was like, let's just be careful. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, in her role as Chancellor of the University of London, officially opened the Quad building at the King's College in London. She met with senior leadership, researchers, and students to officially open the building. Now, this building provides a teaching home for the King's Department of Engineering. Apparently, it has cutting-edge facilities and spaces for students and researchers to discover and research, which lets the next generation of engineers find solutions to some real-world problems. This apparently was one of the King's major initiatives in the King's Vision 2029. Very nice. Next up, Queen Camilla. I told you already about the 500-word, competition from the BBC. Well, they finally had the awards ceremony for that, and apparently Queen Camilla, while they were filming this special episode, asked if she still finds time to read, and she goes, "I do when I have a holiday." Moving on. Next up, we have the Duke of Gloucester, who went to the Ipswich Town Foundation, Portman Road, on March 4th, where he met 2 Suffolk punch horses and their handlers. Very nice. Unbelievable. Let's move on now to Piers Morgan, because he said this whole panel is probably going to agree with this. He said, well, let's talk about Meghan Markle, my old friend, and her new Netflix series, Love, Meghan. He says, I've seen some really brutal reviews in my time, but my God, The Independent called it queasy and exhausting. The Guardian said it was gormless lifestyle filler. The Telegraph said it was an exercise in narcissism, saying Meghan invites people to her pretend house and they tell her how amazing she is. And this happens for 8 episodes. And then there was a clip, and they show her a clip where she basically, the one where she told Mindy Kaling off for not calling her Megan Sussex. Now, most of you may not know that Piers Morgan is actually from Sussex, and he did not have some kind words to say. So then he went to his panel. So Piers asked this girl all the way on the right, did you watch it? What's your review? And she said, listen, I watched the first episode so I could speak to you from a position of at least some knowledge. And I just sat there thinking, why does this exist? The show it's based on are of women working, right? Women making a living, either as a lifestyle brand or a cooking show or what have you. But Meghan Markle is not working. She's pretending to work, purely to get attention, to feed this bottomless need of attention. And I'll tell you the second thing I was thinking, Piers, I was thinking you must be feeling so vindicated right now because you had her number from day one. Piers then says this was a vanity project. It's people telling Meghan how great she is. And it's not even her house. And she's making coffee and basic cakes. And there's actually nothing to learn. He also informed us that Harry now is below Andrew as the most disliked royal. And that Americans are just not interested in them anymore. And I can say I completely agree with that statement. FYI, the black gentleman on the panel said, when you choose a wife, you have to be careful. And Harry did not choose well. Exactly. All right, let's move on. Other comments are coming out about Meghan's show. They're basically saying that it's a dystopian nightmare for feminists. What you're seeing is what we would have looked like had women never gotten the vote and been consigned to the Jane Austen world of sprigged cotton and flower arranging, where survival meant marrying rich and entertaining the locals. They also pointed out that there's a strong sexual theme to this series that projects from the way Meghan talks, and I think the way she keeps her shirts unbuttoned basically down to her navel. Now, in an attempt to get people interested in her brand since her show is flopping, Meghan put out a video. And in the video, she's in her kitchen making cookies. She baked cookies for the entire, audience of Drew Barrymore's show. And it's her children, Claire Keller, the woman who designed her wedding dress, and like some other people. But I just don't understand why she thinks that showing her children suddenly is going to help her, number one. Number two, let's not forget that Harry's case in the UK is coming up for security because his children are in so much danger. How is that going to go in court now that Meghan is putting up constant pictures of the children? How is that going to go? Once again, this is supposed to be Lily. She looks completely different from the picture we saw of the child playing Candyland. Then this picture shows up of Meghan kissing Archie, supposedly. First of all, look at her mouth. She's not even puckering. Second of all, the kid's hair isn't wavy. And third of all, he's leaning away from her. Yeah, something's weird. And also, a big thank you to Green Cat on Twitter for showing that the recipe she's using, once again, easy peasy, found online. A big thank you to Kathy California for these pictures. You guys know that we are about to do episode 7 is the one that we're reviewing. And once again, she took a swipe at the royal family. This woman is stuck in perpetual victim mode. They're talking while they're cooking. Meghan says, "You've given me this idea, and I think it's meaningful that if you break something that is precious and valuable, it's not broken. You taught me this, that fracture actually makes it more beautiful. That break makes it more beautiful. And I just think that it's really symbolic. If you've been through something, you're not broken. It can be fixed. It can be sealed. It can be healed." And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's never going to stop. Never. All right, here we go. Let's review number 7. So number 7 starts off with Meghan writing a note to her dear friend, Vicki. And then she goes out into the garden because she's going to make her friend a harvest basket. And of course, she's grabbing all the vegetables from this garden that doesn't belong to her. And I can't help but notice that she's once again wearing a Northwestern shirt. She's once again talking about texture. It would drive me crazy to hear this word come out of her mouth 20 times a day. This stuff has to have certain color and texture. It's just so strange. So then she takes all the vegetables inside, and I have this harvest basket for a friend, and Vicki is this wonderful person. She built her own skincare company because, Meghan's only friends with people that are super wealthy, of course. And she talks about how she was in the TIG. She goes, I used to have this lifestyle website called the TIG, and she was one of the first people that I had to do a travel guide on. So you see her taking this basket and basically just putting the stuff in. And she goes, oh yeah, when she moved into my neighborhood, I sent her a basket and she and her mom made dumplings with it. She was just so thrilled. And so I've invited her to show me how to make the dumplings. Now, I'm not kidding. This takes up like the first 5 minutes of this episode. She's trying to tell you how to put fruit and vegetables in a basket for somebody. Oy. This is where it really gets weird. So she goes back into the kitchen and she goes, oh yeah, Vicky's coming and Vicky loves coffee. And every time I go, she offers me coffee, which is not really typically my thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean it's not your thing? Every single episode, you're pouring yourself a cup of coffee in the morning. She goes, but I always say yes to her and she puts this creamer in that's really sweet. And so I've just decided I'm going to make my own creamer and I'm going to put the condensed milk in and the half and half and vanilla bean and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to make, creamer for her. Yeah, whatever. She also bought a couple of croissants. And so she pulls some strawberries out and some mint to, make it look a little nicer. So she puts the strawberries and stuff and she says, well, this just goes to show that you can take an everyday item and elevate it just a little bit. And when she said that, it really struck me that she literally just has buzzwords and buzz statements, and that's all she has. So while this is going on, she forgets about the stuff on the stove and Michael goes, the cooktop, and she turns around and this stuff is frothing all over the place. And Meghan goes, yeah, I bet it's still good. And she spoons it down. And then she does something which I think is just terrible. She takes the spoon, she puts it in her mouth, declares the food is good, and then puts the spoon back on the pot. I'm sorry, that's disgusting. She then leaves the kitchen, changes into another outfit, and then her friend Vicki shows up and she gives Vicki the coffee and they have a 5-minute conversation about the cream. And of course, Meghan lets this woman know that I made the creamer just for you, etc., etc. Now, let me just say, this is the one guest of Meghan's I actually liked. She was so unpretentious. You could tell she wasn't acting. She's super nice, down to earth, really nice person. So Meghan gives her the harvest basket that she made for her. Look what I made for you. This woman actually seemed relatively grateful and nice. Now, of course, it was so pretentious of Meghan to make cartons that say Archie's Chicken, because this is where the eggs came from, Archie's chicken coop. Anyway, this woman basically says, look, I found this old recipe book from my mom and this piece of paper fell out and it's the recipe. And so this is how we're going to make it. I will say that at least this time Meghan has her hair pulled back, but once again, I didn't see anybody wash their hands at all. Now, this woman also knew the assignment. I love coming to your place to eat because you always make it seem like home and like a community. All the buzzwords were in there. It's at this point the woman says, we're not going to make the dumpling wrappers. I'm going to use the pre-made ones because it could be tricky. And this is when Meghan does her speech about, I always talk about just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you don't want to do some things. Some things is where that love can come in. So we made the filling. It still feels personal and you're not losing extra credit. They get to the part where they're going to make some dips and the woman goes, let's just use your chili oil, Meghan. So now there's a whole section on how to make chili oil. It's so simple, according to Meghan. Basically, she takes another oil and she adds some chili and garlic to it. I'm not kidding. She then gives you a lecture on what actually brings out the heat, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, even at a young age, we didn't have a lot, but we traveled. My mom was a travel agent and we would just try so many different flavors in so many different places. My mom would make gumbo. And once again, she makes no mention of her father or the fact that her mother was gone for years. Now, I have to tell you, she tries really hard to try to sound like a chef. We're going to let all of this steep together, the complexity of the flavor that you're layering in. You get it? Nobody talks like that. It can really be nuanced, even more than you can imagine, blah, blah, blah. And so she makes this stuff with sunflower oil, I might add. And then she puts it into a jar and she goes, there's a children's story that says, let mama rest. So let's let it rest. So now she jumps back to the dumplings and they're making a pot sticker sauce. And at some point they get done cooking and they go to get this thing out of the pan. Well, this woman knows what she's doing. Meghan does not. Meghan tries to help her dump it out and they make a mess of it. And Meghan ends up dumping the thing onto the countertop after several attempts. And the whole thing is just a big mess. So Meghan is trying to get it off of the counter and the woman literally says to her, leave it there. And she goes and gets these other two instruments, which she then uses to put it on the plate where it belongs. And, the woman's like, oh, your mother'd be proud of you. And I'm thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding. You had it and Meghan just dumped your food onto the countertop. Of course, they started eating it. Oh, it was so good, so good, so good. I don't like Meghan. She's fake as crap. But I like this woman. She seems to be really nice. And of course, look what Meghan put on the top. She then goes outside and goes, Vicki, I didn't just invite you here for the pot sticker recipe. I want you to tell me how you make your masks and exfoliants. I guess she doesn't want to buy the woman's product. She wants the woman to, put them together for her. And it's holistic healing. And can you show me how you make some of those? And that's how that goes. Again, I actually like this woman and I feel bad that she was roped into this show because I feel like she's really sincere and nice and Meghan took advantage. Anyway, she goes, let's have some blooming flower tea. And in case you guys don't recognize that, I have the exact same teapot and the exact same blooming flower tea here in my house. It comes from Amazon. It's cheap. So I don't know if she plans on selling that, but if she does, don't buy it from her. You can get it really inexpensively from Amazon. I am so looking forward to your comments. And once again, you guys, I'm doing some recipes along with the animals and everything else on my other channel. And you'll find the link to that down in the description box, along with the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, my Amazon wish list, the link to my father's book, which is still up for sale, and my physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.